I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name is Jake, and I want to share my story. I had a seemingly perfect life with my wife, Lisa. We had been together for nearly a decade, and for the most part, things were good, routine, predictable, and comfortable. We owned a nice home in the suburbs, had good jobs, and even a dog named Max who loved chasing squirrels in our backyard. But over the past few months, I started noticing changes in Lisa. At first, I attributed them to stress from work. She was a marketing manager, and I knew her job was demanding. She would come home later than usual and seemed more short-tempered. Her once warm, affectionate nature began to shift to something colder. Whenever I tried to talk to her about it, she brushed me off with a quick, "I'm fine, just tired," or "You worry too much." I wanted to believe her, but as the days turned into weeks, my gut told me something was off. I remember one evening, while I was cleaning up the kitchen after dinner, I found her phone lying on the counter. The screen was lit up, and I saw a message notification from a contact I didn't recognize. It was a flirty message, something along the lines of, "Can't wait to see you again, you make me feel alive." I felt a punch in my gut. I picked the phone up, heart racing, and opened it. My blood ran cold. There were more messages, each more intimate than the last. My stomach twisted into knots, and I felt like I was going to be sick. The following days were a blur of confusion and dread. I confronted Lisa with the evidence, my voice shaking as I showed her the messages. Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought I saw genuine fear. But then she quickly snapped back to her defensive mode, her voice dripping with that familiar sarcasm. "You really shouldn't snoop through my things, Jake. You know trust is important in a marriage, right?" Her entire demeanor shifted from shock to blame in an instant. I was furious, hurt, but mostly confused. I felt like a fool standing there, holding her phone as she tried to turn the tables on me. "I do trust you, Lisa. But how can I trust you after this?" I pressed. She rolled her eyes, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "You're overreacting, it's just harmless flirting. You know how boring it's been around here. I deserve to feel desired again." Those words hit me like a freight train. I had been so focused on maintaining our routine that I hadn't even realized she felt this way. As she continued to deny or downplay the seriousness of her actions, I felt my anger simmer, then boil over. "You think it's harmless? You're having an emotional affair with someone, Lisa. This isn't just flirting." I shouted, packing back and forth in our living room. I could feel the walls closing in, her dismissive attitude slicing through me like a knife. I wanted to fight for our marriage, but I also felt the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest. It was in that moment of confrontation that I realized how deep the betrayal cut. I had given her everything, my heart, my trust, my life, and now she was throwing it away for some thrill. In the following days, I was a mess. I went from anger and outrage to feelings of profound sadness. I replayed our memories together in my mind, wondering when things had started to go wrong. Was I that blind? I felt lost, like a ship without a compass. I began to think about my next steps. I could feel the rage bubbling beneath the surface, but I didn't want to make a rash decision. I needed a plan, something that would allow me to reclaim my dignity while also making her understand the gravity of what she had done. I just didn't know what that would look like yet. For a few days after the confrontation, I was in a state of limbo. I spent most of my time at home, just moving through the motions, but Lisa was like a stranger in the house. She still acted indifferent to my pain, throwing out nonchalant comments about her needing space and how everyone deserves to feel wanted. It infuriated me, but I stayed quiet, choosing to observe her behavior. I had a plan brewing in my mind, but I needed to gather more information before I executed it. One evening, while I was scrolling through my phone, I decided to reach out to a close friend, Mark, who had been through a similar situation a few years back. I needed someone to talk to who could understand the complexities of infidelity. When I shared my story with him, he was supportive, but he also warned me about the emotional toll it could take. "You need to be careful, Jake. You deserve better than this," he said, and it stung. I knew I did, but the heart wants what it wants, right? As part of my plan, I started to pay closer attention to Lisa's whereabouts. I noticed she had begun taking long walks at night under the guise of needing fresh air. It seemed innocent enough on the surface, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was sneaking off to meet the guy she had been messaging. I remember one night she claimed she was going to walk Max, but took her phone with her instead of leaving it behind as she usually did. My gut churned with anxiety. It wasn't long before I decided to follow her. I know it sounds drastic, but I needed to know the truth. I waited for the right night, when she dressed in a way I hadn't seen in a while, tight jeans and a sleek top that accentuated her figure. It was the same outfit she wore on the night I had scrolled through her phone. When she grabbed her keys, I felt my heart race. I hopped into the car and followed at a distance, staying far enough behind so she wouldn't notice me. My mind raced with thoughts of betrayal, anger, and sadness. As I drove, I recalled the happy moments we shared, the plans we had for the future, and now it felt as if everything was crumbling before my eyes. I couldn't believe it was coming to this, yet I needed the closure of knowing what was really happening. Lisa drove to a bar downtown that had a hip, vibrant atmosphere. I parked a few blocks away and walked to the entrance, keeping my head low and blending in with a crowd of people. The place was buzzing with laughter and chatter, but I felt completely isolated. I didn't want to see her, but I had to know. Eventually, I spotted her sitting at the bar, laughing with a guy tall, dark-haired, and obviously charming. They were leaning close, sharing drinks, and at one point he reached over and brushed his hand against her arm. My heart sank. It was a sight I had dreaded, but I needed to confront it head-on. I watched them for what felt like an eternity, debating whether to approach her or just slip away. But my feet felt glued to the floor as I watched the scene unfold. Lisa's laughter rang like bells in my ears, and I could see the spark in her eyes. Did she really feel that way about him? Did she forget about us so easily? The moment became too painful to bear. I decided I'd had enough. I turned away and headed for the exit, feeling a wave of nausea wash over me. The betrayal cut even deeper than I had imagined, and I could feel my resolve hardening. I headed home, my mind racing with thoughts of how I would confront her again, this time with undeniable proof of her infidelity. Once back home, I sat in silence, the weight of the night settling on my shoulders like a heavy cloak. I knew I had to do something more than just confront her. I had to make her feel the same pain she had inflicted on me. I wasn't going to just let her walk all over me and get away with it. She needed to understand what her actions meant and how they affected not just me, but also our relationship. I started to plot out my next move, carefully considering how I would execute my plan. Revenge isn't an easy road to walk, but I felt it was necessary at this point. I needed to find a way to regain my power, to show her that she couldn't just take my trust and throw it away. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I resolved to make her realize the gravity of her choices. I just needed to figure out how. The next few days passed in a haze of determination and anger. I was fueled by the image of Lisa at that bar with another man, laughing like everything we had built together no longer mattered. I didn't want to think about the life we'd shared, the dreams we had for the future. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal, just like I had felt it. I was tired of being the one who always made sacrifices and compromises. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. I started plotting my revenge. It wasn't going to be about physical harm or anything extreme. I didn't want to stoop to those levels. I wanted to hit her where it would hurt the most, her pride, her sense of security. I decided I would expose her infidelity in a way that would make her realize what she'd thrown away. I needed to gather more evidence, and thanks to my friend Mark's advice, I knew just how to do it. Mark had mentioned something about discreetly documenting interactions and keeping a record of everything. I bought a small, inconspicuous camera and set it up in a corner of the living room, making sure it was positioned to capture any late-night conversations or arguments. I also started tracking her phone activity. I didn't want to invade her privacy too much, but I needed to know the extent of her affair. I began to monitor her social media, checking her messages whenever she left her phone unattended. As the days turned into weeks, I gathered a trove of evidence. I became a silent observer of her life, watching her transform from the wife I once cherished into someone almost unrecognizable. Her late-night outings became more frequent, and I could see her moods shifting. She would come home with the scent of cheap cologne lingering on her clothes, and her demeanor was often dismissive, as if I were a nuisance in her life. One evening, I caught her in a lie that sent my heart racing. She had claimed she was headed out for girls' night with some friends from work. I had already seen the messages between her and the guy from the bar, so I knew that wasn't the truth. This time, I decided to follow her again, but I was prepared. I hopped back in my car, following her to the same bar, only to discover her sitting outside with the same guy, their laughter echoing into the night. They were sharing a plate of nachos, and Lisa leaned in closer to whisper something in his ear, her fingers lightly grazing his arm. I felt my heart thud in my chest with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I was done being the passive husband. It was time to confront her again. I waited until they were just about to leave, watching as Lisa stood up, her laughter echoing in the cool evening air. They moved toward the parking lot, and I felt my pulse quicken as I followed at a distance. As they approached his car, I stepped forward, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "Lisa," I called out, my voice breaking through the ambient noise of the bar. She froze, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and fear. The guy next to her turned, looking between us, clearly confused. "What the hell, Jake?" Lisa spat, her face flushing with embarrassment. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. "You said you were going out with friends. Should I have known they were all guys?" The panic in her eyes shifted to anger, and she crossed her arms defiantly. "You have no right to follow me. This is so pathetic." "Pathetic?" I echoed, disbelief washing over me. "You're the one who's out here cheating on me. Do you even care how this affects us?" The guy started to back away, sensing the tension. "Maybe I should go," he said hesitantly. "No, you stay right there," I snapped, my eyes locked on Lisa. "You wanted to feel desired again, right? How does it feel to be caught red-handed?" Her expression morphed into a mix of anger and guilt, and it was clear she was grasping for words. "This isn't what it looks like, Jake. You don't understand." I took a step closer, my heart racing as I pushed through the emotional turmoil. "Then explain it to me, Lisa. Because from where I'm standing it looks pretty damn clear." She hesitated, glancing back at the guy who was awkwardly shifting from foot to foot. "We were just talking, I swear. You're overreacting." "Talking? Is that what you call it?" I shook my head in disbelief. "I've seen the messages. I know what's going on. Just admit it. This isn't some innocent friendship." Her eyes flashed with defiance, but beneath it I saw a flicker of regret. "It's not like that. I just wanted to feel wanted. We haven't connected in ages." That hit me like a punch to the gut. "So cheating was your solution?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "You think I've been happy with this distance between us? I wanted to work on our marriage too, Lisa, but this." She looked down, the facade crumbling, and for the first time I saw a hint of vulnerability. "I thought I could just have a little fun and it wouldn't matter," she admitted, her voice softening. "It matters, Lisa. It matters to us." The tears I had been holding back threatened to spill over, but I fought them, unwilling to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. We stood there in silence, the weight of our reality settling heavily around us. I realized then that I had two paths before me. I could continue this confrontation, digging deeper into the hurt, or I could take a step back and really think about what I wanted moving forward. I had made my point clear, but there was something more profound brewing beneath the surface. As I turned to leave, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. I knew I wouldn't let this slide. I had to get some closure. I had to make her understand the gravity of what she had done, not just for my sake, but for her own as well. The game was on, and I was ready to play. After that confrontation outside the bar, I was left with a whirlwind of emotions. I returned home and sat in the living room in silence, replaying the night's events in my mind. I could still see the shock etched on Lisa's face, the way she had faltered when her deceit was laid bare before her. My heart pounded with adrenaline and anger, but beneath it all was a deep sadness. The realization that our marriage was crumbling right before my eyes, and that the woman I had once loved had chosen to betray me. The days that followed were tense. Lisa tried to reach out, but I kept my distance, my mind a mess of conflicting feelings. She would come home and attempt small talk, asking about my day or making comments about the weather, but I would respond in monosyllables, my heart not in it. I wanted to confront her fully, to lay out my plan for her to understand the weight of what she had done, but I also wanted her to feel the absence of my presence, like a piece of her world had been yanked away. One afternoon, I made a decision. I would take a different approach, one that would force Lisa to see the consequences of her behavior without being overtly cruel. I decided to set up a staged scene that would mirror her betrayal perfectly. I had already gathered evidence of her affair. Now, I would use it to show her how it felt to be on the receiving end of her actions. I contacted Mark again, explaining my plan. He was surprised but ultimately supportive, suggesting I use my evidence to craft a scenario that would make her face the truth in a powerful way. Mark had crazy ideas about getting even, but I opted for something more impactful than petty revenge. I would orchestrate a fake night out of my own, one that would show Lisa what it felt like to be the one left behind. The following week, I informed Lisa that I had a work event to attend, a networking dinner that I couldn't miss. I dressed in my best suit, putting on the facade of a man who was ready to mingle. I knew Lisa would be curious. She always had been about my work life, so I made sure to drop hints about how exciting the evening would be. I even mentioned a new colleague I had been getting to know, one who would be there too. I could see the flicker of concern in her eyes, and it fueled my resolve. On the night of the event, I left the house early, telling her I would be out late. But instead of heading to any work function, I went to a local bar where I knew a few of our mutual friends would be hanging out. I borrowed Mark's camera and set it up in a discreet spot to capture everything. I wanted to create a scenario that would mirror her own deceit while ensuring that I could show her the footage later. I mingled with friends, laughing and enjoying myself, but my heart raced as I waited for the right moment. I had arranged for a female friend, Sarah, to come by, someone Lisa had met several times before, and I knew she was attractive. I made sure to chat with her, laughing, leaning in close, and enjoying the moment. It felt strange to be doing this, but I also felt empowered. This was my way of reclaiming control over the situation. As the night wore on, I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster. Part of me enjoyed the attention and the thrill of being carefree again, but it was also a painful reminder of what I had lost. I noticed a pang of guilt every time I laughed a little too loudly or leaned a little too close, but I forced myself to push through. I wanted Lisa to see what her actions had driven me to. This was a performance, a carefully crafted play designed to make her confront the reality of her choices. When the night came to an end, I returned home, my heart pounding in anticipation of Lisa's reaction. She had been waiting up for me, sitting in the living room with the dim light casting shadows on her face. I could see a mixture of relief and wary concern in her eyes as I walked through the door. "How was it?" she asked, feigning casual interest. "It was good," I replied, suppressing a smile. "I met some interesting people. You'd have liked Sarah. She's really fun." At that moment, I could see the shift in her expression. "Sarah," she echoed, her voice a touch sharper than before. "You've mentioned her before, right?" "Yeah, we had a lot to talk about," I said, my heart racing as I watched her reactions closely. It's funny how easy it is to connect with someone when you're just having fun. I could see her processing my words, and it was clear she was starting to piece together the implications of what I was saying. The discomfort in her expression deepened, and I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that she was beginning to realize the weight of her actions. Later that night, I sat down with Lisa, ready to show her the footage I had captured. I pressed play, and we both watched in silence as the camera recorded the laughter, the playful banter, and the physical closeness between me and Sarah. I could feel Lisa's tension building as the scenes unfolded before her eyes, and when the video ended, I turned to her, watching the realization sink in. "Do you see it now?" I asked, my voice steady. "This is what you did to us, Lisa. You stepped out of our marriage for some fun without considering the consequences. How does it feel to watch your husband connect with someone else, even if it's just a friendly gathering?" She looked at me with wide eyes, a mix of anger and confusion washing over her features. "You did this to teach me a lesson," she snapped. "This is childish, Jake." "No, this is reality," I shot back. You wanted to be desired, to feel alive outside of our marriage. Well, guess what? So do I, but that doesn't mean I go out and betray the person I vowed to share my life with. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see her grappling with the emotions swirling within her: guilt, anger, regret. For the first time, she was forced to confront the impact of her choices and the pain they caused. I let the silence sit between us, knowing that I had made my point. The feelings I had buried were starting to surface, the sadness mingling with anger. I wanted her to understand that this wasn't just about hurt feelings. It was about trust and respect, two things that had become increasingly absent in our relationship. As the emotional weight hung heavy in the air, I prepared myself for the next phase of our journey, whether that meant fighting for our marriage or finally letting go. I had shown her the consequences of her actions, and now it was up to her to decide how to move forward. The atmosphere in the living room was thick with tension after the video ended. Lisa sat across from me, her brow furrowed in thought, the anger fatting into something more vulnerable. She looked like she was trying to process everything: my betrayal of trust in following her, along with the ramifications of her own actions. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, both of us teetering on the brink, unsure of what the next step would be. "Jake, I didn't think you would go this far," she finally said, her voice softer now. "I didn't think it would turn into this kind of game." I leaned forward, my heart racing. "It's not a game, Lisa. This is our marriage. You made a choice to step outside of it. I just wanted you to understand how it feels to be on the other side of betrayal." I felt the weight of my emotions pressing down, but I stayed firm in my resolve. "You wanted excitement and attention, but at what cost? You're throwing away everything we've built together." Her eyes glistened as she processed my words. "I know I messed up," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought I could find a spark outside of us. I didn't realize it would hurt you this much. I felt lost." That admission hit me hard. I had felt lost too, but I never sought comfort in someone else's arms. I would have done anything to reignite that spark. We could have talked about our issues, worked through them together. Instead, you chose to cheat. "I was selfish," she confessed, hanging her head. "I thought it was harmless. I never meant for it to spiral out of control." I watched her closely, waiting for the moment when remorse would replace the anger and defensiveness that had consumed her. "So what do you want from here? Is this something you truly want to fix?" I asked, my voice steady but laced with apprehension. "I want to try. I want to make this work," she said, a note of desperation creeping into her voice. "But I know I need to earn your trust back. I don't know where to start." The hurt I felt was still fresh, and yet I found a flicker of hope igniting within me. Could we really rebuild from this? I had spent countless nights dreaming of the life we once shared, and the thought of reclaiming it felt both comforting and terrifying. But the decision couldn't just be mine, it had to be a mutual commitment. "If we're going to try, it's going to take time," I replied cautiously. "I need you to show me that you're serious about making amends. No more late-night outings, no more secrets. We need to communicate, and we need to be honest about everything." "Absolutely, I can do that," Lisa said eagerly, her eyes brightening with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes. I can start by being more transparent about my whereabouts, and I'm open to talking about what we both need. And I'll need to share my feelings too," I said, realizing that this would be a two-way street. I've been bottling things up for too long, and that has to change. The conversation shifted from accusations to possibilities, and I could feel the weight of the burden lifting, albeit slightly. We spent hours discussing where we had gone wrong, exploring the cracks in our relationship that had led Lisa to seek affirmation outside our marriage. It became clear that we both needed to change, and that realization was the first step in the right direction. As the night wore on, I felt a sense of cautious optimism creeping in. It was a long way from where we had started, but there was a small glimmer of hope flickering in the darkness. I had no idea if we could truly fix what had been broken, but I was willing to try. In the days that followed, we began to implement changes. Lisa took the initiative to share her schedule with me, and I did the same. We made a commitment to have regular check-ins, where we could express our feelings and frustrations without fear of judgment. I found myself looking for the little moments in our interactions, the shared laughter, the teasing banter, things I had missed during the turmoil of her betrayal. But then, just as I began to feel a sense of stability returning, I received a message from Mark. He had been my confidant through this whole ordeal, and I was eager to share the news that Lisa and I were trying to mend our relationship. However, when I opened his message, my heart dropped. "Hey man, you might want to be careful. I saw Lisa at the bar again last night and she was with that guy again. I know this is tough, but you deserve to know the truth." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from beneath me. I couldn't comprehend what I was reading. Hadn't she just promised to be more transparent? My heart raced as I recalled the progress we had made. I wanted to believe she was committed to rebuilding our marriage, but this news shattered that hope in an instant. I stared at the screen in disbelief, torn between anger and heartbreak. How could she? How could she betray me again after everything we had just talked about? I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I couldn't let this betrayal go unchecked, not after the progress we had made. I felt the fury bubbling up inside me, but I also knew that I had to approach this with a level head. Confronting her now would only lead to more chaos, but I couldn't just ignore it either. I needed to gather more information first, to understand the full scope of her actions and the commitment she was making to our relationship. As I paced around the living room, I realized this was no longer just about revenge or proving a point. It was about my worth and the love I had once shared with Lisa. I had to find out if she was truly willing to fight for our marriage or if she was still caught in her selfish desires. With that thought, I steeled myself for the confrontation that awaited me. I would confront her, but this time I wouldn't come from a place of vengeance. I would come from a place of strength and clarity. It was time for the truth to come out once and for all. I spent the night wrestling with my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that had washed over me after receiving Mark's message. It felt like my heart was being crushed under the weight of Lisa's unfaithfulness, a pain I thought we had begun to mend. But now, the seams of our fragile truce were threatening to unravel, and I knew I had to confront her about this once and for all. The next day, after a restless night, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to know where Lisa stood and what was truly happening. I had already given her a chance to make things right, and if she was still seeing the other guy, I deserved to know. When Lisa walked in that evening, I could see from her expression that she was in good spirits. I felt a pang of anger as I remembered how she had the audacity to act like nothing was wrong. I couldn't let her charm blind me to the truth any longer. "Hey, can we talk?" I said, my tone more serious than I intended. "Sure," she replied, her voice brightening as she moved to sit down. "What's up?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of this moment pressing down on me. "I heard something today from Mark." Her smile faltered and I could see apprehension flicker in her eyes. "What did he say?" I looked her squarely in the eyes, allowing the gravity of what I was about to say to sink in. "He saw you at the bar again with that guy. How can you keep doing this, Lisa? I thought we were working on things." The tension in the room snapped like a taut string and I watched as her face drained of color. "Jake, don't make excuses." I interrupted, my voice rising. "I can't keep doing this. I thought we were in this together. I thought you were committed to fixing what was broken, but it seems you haven't changed at all." "I swear I was just trying to figure things out," she pleaded, her voice shaky. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but I felt like I was losing myself. I thought we were on a path to healing, but I guess I'm not ready yet." "Not ready?" I barked incredulously. "You're not ready to commit to your marriage." "What does that even mean? You can't keep running away from this, Lisa. You either want our marriage or you do." I could see her wrestling with her emotions, and for a moment she looked conflicted. "I thought I could have both. I thought I could explore my feelings for someone else while also trying to fix us." "That's not how it works," I shouted, my anger boiling over. "You can't just have your cake and eat it too. You have to choose me or him. This isn't a game." "For God's sake, Jake, I didn't think it would turn into this. I thought I could have fun. I thought I could find myself." Her tears began to spill over and I felt a mixture of anger and pity coursing through me. "It's too late for that, Lisa. You've hurt me too much. I've stood by and watched you betray our vows, and I can't keep doing this." She reached out, desperation etched in her features. "Please don't say that. I want to fix this. I want to be better for you. I'm scared. I don't know how to turn back." I took a step back, my heart aching at the sight of her vulnerability, but I also felt a wave of clarity wash over me. You have to decide right now what you want. You can't keep straddling the fence. If you choose him, then I'm done. But if you want to fight for us, I'm willing to try, but it has to be genuine. The silence in the room was deafening. Lisa looked down, her hands trembling as she processed the weight of her choices. I want to try. I want us, Jake. I just need time to figure out how to be a better person. Time is not something I can give you if you're still seeing him, I told her with a heavy heart. It's now or never. I could see the realization dawning on her, and for a moment it felt like we were both standing on the precipice of change. I'll end it, I promise. I'll cut ties with him and I'll be open with you about everything. I don't want to lose us. As much as I wanted to believe her, I also knew words were just words. Trust was not something that could be easily repaired. You need to show me, I said firmly. I need to see actions, not just hear promises. Over the next few days, I kept a close eye on Lisa. I noticed her efforts to be more transparent. She left her phone unlocked, shared her schedule with me, and even cut back on her social outings. It was a start, but my heart was still guarded, hesitant to trust her completely. Then, one evening, she came home after a long day at work, looking worn out but determined. I ended things with him, she said, her voice steady but laced with exhaustion. I texted him and told him it was over, no more lies. It was a step, sure, but I still needed to see more than just words. I appreciate that, I said cautiously, but this is just the beginning. We need to work on rebuilding what we lost. I know, she replied, her eyes sincere. I'm ready to put in the work. I want to go to therapy together. I want us to be better. I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe this could work. Maybe. We could rebuild our relationship if we both committed to it wholeheartedly. But even as I allowed myself to feel that hope, I knew it would take time. The journey of healing wasn't going to be quick or easy. There would be bumps along the way, and trust would have to be earned again. But as I sat across from Lisa that night, the difficult conversations behind us, I felt a renewed sense of determination. We had both made mistakes, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could find our way back to each other. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I was willing to fight for it. We didn't have all the answers yet, but we had each other, and that was a start. As I reflected on everything I had been through, the pain of betrayal was still fresh, but I also realized that it had taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of communication. And in that moment, I felt a surge of hope that we could build something stronger together, a new beginning forged from the ashes of our past.